Hello everybody. Going live for Tuesday Talks, and today we have an amazing soul called Amanda Acker, and she is a motivational speaker with the hashtag the Let Good Things Show, and we will talk more about it, what's her mission, and why she does what she does. So I've done a very short introduction for you already, but in true Tuesday Talk styles, I'll hand the mic to you to let us know who you are, what you do, and the big question is why you do it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me here for the Tuesday Talks. I really appreciate that first and foremost. But what I do is I'm a podcast host, I'm a speaker, and I'm an author. I have a day job, I'm an office manager, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. I'm just a plethora of things. But the reason why I do any of what I do, and, with my podcast and my soon to be coaching and everything, is to spread the message to the world that we can do whatever we desire, regardless of our past, and that our pasts don't have to define our futures, and that even though, society may have labeled us as a certain type of person based on choices that we made in our past, that we're still able to break free from those so-called labels and be successful and just have the life that we imagined. And I just think it's so important to share these stories of hope with the world. So that is why I do what I do, and a very short and sweet nutshell of what it is that I do.
Wow, well, that's actually amazing, and thank you for sharing that and letting us know, why you're doing it. So you're on a mission to help others break free on what the society thinks of the individual of a group of people that they should be uh, doing or they shouldn't be doing just
Yeah.
because of what they made in their choices in the past. So you're a firm believer of second chances, I take it, right?
Oh, yes, for sure. Second chances are so important. And, for me on a personal side, everything that I have been through throughout my life, like being a formerly incarcerated person, suffering from addiction and mental illness and toxic relationships, I lived in this shame bubble, this guilt bubble for a long time, probably 13, going on 13 years of just hiding my true self and believing all of those shoulds and the labels that were placed on me, to the point where it was debilitating. And I was starting to lose sight of who I am as a person. And because I was just so desperate also to fit in. So I didn't want other people to see the real me, because if they saw the real me, they wouldn't like me. And at the end of the day, what I've learned over this especially this past year has been massive for growth for me, is that none of those stories that I was telling myself were true. And I never gave myself that second chance until now. And I want to help people go out there and get their second chance without waiting 10 plus years to do so.
Wow, it's an amazing thing to hear that, it's what we tell ourselves every time, and by telling ourselves something, we are giving permission to others to continue with what we've just told ourselves, because without realizing, we are allowing others to treat us the way we actually thought we should be treated, right? Because nobody can do anything without your permission to begin with anyway. So I look at that way as in, you know, um, if you're thinking that, oh, I do not deserve, XYZ car, for example, and every time if you do come across it, you're stopping yourself from getting that, and then it gets picked up. There are signs and invisible languages out there that some people pick up on, or and then you would never receive that because then people will like, well, they don't want it. It's been offered, they don't want it, or because the way you are handling yourself, they will say, well, I don't think we need to invite that person anymore because they don't do these things. They're quiet, they don't interacting, they're not engaging. There's so many things, and it could be all because you're thinking in your own head, thinking, well, oh, I don't think they or like me because nobody's talking to me, and you could be just a quiet person sitting in the corner, but they're waiting for you to start talking, and they're thinking, I don't know what to say because they're quiet, you know. So
Yeah.
it's both sides, right?
Yeah, that's so true, and then also like you said about, we basically essentially teach people how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. And that's where boundaries come into place too, because a lot of times I was sacrificing myself to be liked by other people by allowing them to walk all over me. And then I'd be like, well, why are these people treating me this way? Why me? Why me? But, when I came to my final rock bottom slash wake up call, it was like, well, wait, it's not anyone else's fault but mine because I continue to allow it to happen. I'm not communicating boundaries. I'm letting people just do whatever they want, and that's no way to live. Because then you go home and you're mentally drained and exhausted, and you end up, I know for me, I ended up telling, lies, and I hate liars. Ask my son. I was very angry with him when he lied to me, but I was doing it. I was showing that, lying is okay and not not upholding, that's not the right word, but by not being true to myself, I was teaching other people around me that it was okay to treat me that way. Just like you said, if I were to go to a party, I'm very shy and introverted, so I was that person in the corner, but I would think, well, why doesn't anybody like me? I don't understand. Meanwhile, it's because I'm sitting in the corner, probably like looking like I'm angry at everyone in the room, because I'm uncomfortable, So it's getting out of your own head and changing your mindset.
And
So,
I love what you just shared there, and thank you for sharing this. You know, in terms of like that you were that was I was myself once upon a time that same person because I grew up very shy. You know, I was so shy that I could not go into a grocery store and to the cashier if I have to pick something up. I was that shy because I have to like speak to that person, and I'm like, no,
like,
I,
who doesn't want to do that?
yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, it's a harmless thing, but at that point, you're like thinking, no, I don't want to have that conversation. I don't know what they will
Mhm.
ask and all that stuff. But slowly got built and changed, and now I am kind of an introvert, extrovert, fence person. So if I just go with the room, if the room is good energy and everything, and I can see I can interact, I'll interact. If I see there are certain people in the corner quiet, if I know them or I can see there's connection, I'll walk up to them and then have that interaction. So I'll walk around the room now. But it was something that I had to work on and actually realize that I needed to do this and nobody will do it for me.
Yeah.
Because, I get up in the morning, I go about my day, I make my decisions for the day. Nobody else is doing this, right? And this is when all the shift happened for me. So what was the time when, how was the shift for you? I know it's not an easy journey when you suddenly realize this. So when the realization happened, what was the journey that time for you?
Yeah, so my journey, I'll give you like the abridged version of the long call, but I'm a child of divorce. So at age 15, my mother left, and growing up, my mother and I were best friends. And I really think, like in hindsight, that's what changed my mindset about life. I felt like I had to constantly keep people any way I could because I was afraid that they would leave me. So throughout life, I just stayed in that chameleon state of mind, so to speak. So, certain music even. I would literally pretend like I didn't like my favorite music just so someone would be friends with me. And, I was doing drugs. I was being promiscuous. I was just doing all of these horrible things. And I was in this toxic relationship for about 7 years. And after I left him, I kind of went down that same spiral again. Like I was alone. I knew I did the right thing, but I still felt like I needed a person in my life. I couldn't survive alone. And so I met my husband and we got married in this time as well. And my ex, who I had left, was still emotionally abusing me, and texting me horrible things. And I had a really hard time with that. And I had this job at the time where I thought this was my dream job. I was like, this is it. I'm so successful. Like I'm working 24/7. I just felt that was what I needed to do. But I got caught up in the drama, the people. I wanted them to like me. So I was drinking with them when I told my husband I wouldn't. Like I was still living that life. And when I lost that job, it destroyed me. I was devastated. I was ashamed of myself. I couldn't believe that I lost this job. How was I going to survive? How was I going to provide for my family? What would people think of me? And I wanted to end my life. And I'm sitting in my closet of our then apartment and I'm crying and I didn't want to keep going. But within that same moment, I had that thought of, wait a second, what if, like, this wasn't my actual thought? It's very much clearer now to me than it was then. But basically, it was like, what if I started, taking care of me? Then what happens? Like, what if I start to figure out who I am, what my values are, what boundaries I need to implement in my life to no longer allow this toxicity into my life? Because, like I said earlier, I was so fixated on why me? I'm the victim. These people found me and now they're trying to destroy me and take everything from me. But I was making the choices that allowed those things to happen. So that realization was my wake up call. And then I reached out for help. I asked my husband, I said, I'm suffering. I don't understand why. Like, I almost destroyed our marriage in this process too, because I wasn't listening to me. I was listening to all the other voices. And when I reached out for help from him, we talked about what was going on and I was open and honest. And then I started developing values. And that was about 2.5 years ago now. So that was when this journey really started. And I know, like, I was incarcerated about 13 years ago. And every time I tell my story, I always say I would love to say that getting out of jail was like, when I turned my life around, but it wasn't, because being incarcerated and then having this criminal record almost made it worse for me because now I was hiding even more than I was prior to that happening. So yeah, I hope I answered your question because I think I forgot it along the way.
No, no, you did. Yes, you did, and such an amazing story that you have there as well in terms of the realization when you realize it's all about yourself instead of pleasing others, uh, and it's a way of how society treats everybody as well. We are growing up, we're conditioned to think that we need people's approval. We need certain people in our life. We need to be around certain things. And we need certain friends. Growing up in school, you come across that. Oh, I need to hang out with this group here.
Yeah.
If I don't do this, then I am doomed for the rest of the school year, right? And
Yes.
and and so forth, right? So I mean, my daughter's 14. I currently hear that already. They have to have certain clothes and certain jackets and all that stuff,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're like, oh yeah. Then I'm thinking, yeah, I remember my time. Okay, yeah, yeah, okay, I understand. So I don't challenge her in that way, but I do say, you do know you don't need to do this. If they're your real friends, they will stick by you. But then I know at that this time she would not understand it, because at the moment she's looking for that approval when she's in school, and when she comes home she's then looking for approval from us of when she's doing her schoolwork or any other thing. She's a high achiever already, so she would be looking to see how can she outdo herself, to get praises and so forth. And sometimes I tell her that from me you will get as less praises as possible, because my expectations from you are that you are able to do everything. If you're looking for praises for everything that you do, and if you're saying, oh yeah, my friend that they always say, oh, well done to this, well done to that, wow, fantastic, great. Then I was thinking, okay, so must have got very low expectations of their child or their daughter, because I expect you to do a lot more and better, because I'm seeing you grow up from baby to what you are now, and I know you are able to do a lot more. And so when you do something very amazing, which is like, wow, I know I didn't expect this, and that's when you will get it. You get regular well dones and everything, but if you want me to just say well done every day, it will lose its meaning. It's not going to be the spectacular, the actual achievement, right?
Yeah,
I might be
that's
going
true.
I might be going off track here now. So, but
I
you
was
know,
like, I was gonna say too, on the kid note, my daughter is 8, my son's 15, but I just had parent teacher conferences for my daughter yesterday, and the funny thing is that when I'm sitting there, I'm telling the teachers, I was like, with my son, I never had any of these problems. Like my daughter will come home like, oh, this person said I have a big butt or a big head, or I'm like, you're 8.
yeah,
And so part of like what I teach her too, and it's also like helping me, is that you're beautiful. Like you have what it takes. Like even though you may struggle in certain subjects, like you're so smart, and just constantly encouraging her, because that's not something I had growing up. If I wasn't getting straight A's, I was being told I was, doing something wrong. But at the end of the day, we can only, if we're trying our best, that's enough. And that's something else I would love to instill in the whole world. Like if you're trying your best, that's enough. You don't have to be, this straight A scholar going and to Harvard University to be good enough. And then like the name brand clothes, oh my gosh, like my son, like I said, he's 15, and I would have to have like a small fortune to supply him with the clothes that he wants. So it's just teaching them at that young age that it's okay, and that who you are is enough, period. you know so
agree 100%. And this is what obviously you and I both are trying to teach our children. But then society out there, when they are out there a little bit longer than they are at home with us, so when they come home, they only have a limited amount of time, and they're off to bed again, so to start the day again the next day, right? And then they are out again for 6 7 hours, and then that's where they actually learn a lot more what than they do at home. So which brings to what we go through and what decisions we make when we are young adults and older. Because I'm a firm believer of, because I have a project that I help young entrepreneurs as well, and this is why I kind of sidetracked to the children as well, because decisions that we make as young adults and adults as well is starting at the very young age, from 10, even 5 sometimes, and or over, is what they are seeing and what they are trying, what they're picking up of your parents making those decisions, people around them making decisions, how things were happening. You were talking about those lies here and there, and you don't like telling lies, but then you did.
yeah.
And it starts with, oh yes, it's a white lie, it's no one's gonna get hurt. But then to cover up that white lie, you have to tell another lie. Then to
Oh
cover
yeah.
that lie, you have to tell another lie.
Yes.
So you have to tell so many lies that you forget the real first lie that you started with, right?
Yeah.
And
So,
and if this is happening all around you, you make up, when you're an adult, you just make those decisions anyway because it was happening around you, right? That's what it is. And so when you decided to, okay, now is the time to shift, and you asked for your husband's help, and it's obviously is there because you've been like 2.5 years in the change now.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's been, yeah, because it'll be 3 years this summer. So yeah, it's been a
Wow.
while.
So it's obviously it's a successful change that you're going through now, and you've got even more success to be had. So when you started this, and you've started a podcast just because of this reason, so that you can help a lot more others. So to to help with your mission, if you want to expand on the podcast, what's it about and what's it called?
Yeah, so the podcast is called the Let Good Things In Show. And when I first started thinking about having a podcast, or no, started thinking about telling my story, that's where it started. I was like, well, I don't want to just go live on Facebook and just start telling people that like I was in jail, and just, it wouldn't make any sense. So I needed some sort of platform. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start a podcast. I've been wanting to for years anyways. And so I started the podcast with the idea of sharing, not mine, but other people's stories. It's like, oh, well, I can interview other people with stories, and that way I can kind of like mangle my story in there. But at the end of the day, I was boiling over. I was like, I have to tell my story. Like, I can't keep hiding this about myself. And the fear of getting found out was just too intense. So I took the podcast and I created a whole series. It's completed now, this series. It's all little chunks of my story. So very in-depth, pivotal moments. Oh no. Oh, I'm still here. I'm sorry. Someone was trying to
Yeah,
mess.
you're back. You're back.
Sorry. But I forget what I was saying now. So little chunks of like the major moments of what I have experienced. And then I also interview people with stories of hope. And when I first started, I didn't have like a true direction and like what I was going to share, but I figured it out. And coming in 2022, the show is going to be mainly interviews with people who have been incarcerated, who have suffered with addiction or mental illness. So you don't have to like meet all three, but one of those is good. I know for me, being a formerly incarcerated person, I also have suffered with addiction and mental illness, and pretty much everyone else that I've spoken to can relate to that. So, and those conversations are so powerful, and I really want to share with the world that before we are whatever label you want to put on us, we're people, and that we're all one decision away from completely derailing our lives. And but at the end of the day, like when I went to jail, I thought, oh no, I'm going to be amongst all these criminals. And, I was in my early 20s, so I like didn't know much about life yet. And when I got in there, I quickly realized that when I looked around, I was like, well, I'm no different than any of these women. We're all surviving the only way we knew how. And I think that society likes to pin people who have been in jail as these criminals, and that we shouldn't be able to get good jobs, and whatever story we want to tell. But we all have a story, and I think it's messed up that we don't get to tell those stories. When you go to get a job, you check that box, you have a criminal record, like forget about it. Most employers are not going to care what your story is. But when I started opening up about mine, I do have a good day job, and my boss does know, and it's refreshing to know that I don't have to stress that I'm going to get found out. So I kind of went off on a tangent, sorry, but I tend to do that. But my podcast is to highlight those stories because I want the world to know, like I said, like that we are people before we are anything else, and we should be treated the same. So, yeah.
Agree. No, agree 100%. We are people before anything else. Labels for me, I just think labels are there for others who just want themselves to feel a little bit superior than anything else. So right, they were like, oh, okay, I'll put this in this box. I'll put this in this box because then I am outside that box and look, I can look into the box, right? That's how I see things. My view of people putting labels, because I'm quite, I'm 100% against labels. All these labels do not mean anything, and labels also then start making you, they start getting you to think about certain angles which really did not existed before. So you might start thinking of, oh, I'm now, as you were saying, if you're filling out a form, the application form, and you have to check that box that if you've been in prison before, or if you have a criminal record, you've done that, but you start thinking, oh, I'm say bye bye to this job now. They're never going to call me.
Yep.
But you've been successful. You have a day job. Your boss knows about it and everything. So along comes along a person who does not put everybody in the same box, and and you continue, right? So and this is where the success of yourself, your success is there because you continued going. Because quite a few people might have just given up after maybe, I don't know, 50 applications or 100 applications, depending on what strength they have. And the current climate as well, where everybody's looking for a job since COVID situation. So it's one of those things, right? So what kept you going? What was the drive when you were trying to, switch your life around and, change yourself? What was the drive there?
Yeah, there was a lot of factors at play. Number one was my children. I want my children to grow up knowing that, knowing all this stuff, that these labels don't mean anything, and that mommy is strong, and that, oh, if mom can do it and she has all this going against her, so can I. I want to build that strength in them. So that was a major factor in it. And also just my mission alone and wanting to help others who've been, especially those who've been incarcerated. Like, I just feel like there needs to be a voice out there, and there needs to be more people coming out, and I want to help. I want to be like, I don't know what the right word is, but I want to be the person who inspires others to tell their stories too. And and telling my story and the things that I've been through is also, in a selfish way, it's healing to me. Talking about it openly, it's like there's this weight that used to be on me so heavy for so long, and to be able to sit here with you or anybody and just like tell this story openly to the public, to the world, it's like that weight is just gone, and I can breathe easier. I have more clarity in my life because I'm not thinking about, oh, well, someone's going to find out today and all this work I've done is just going to go out the window. I don't have that fear anymore. I mean, it could still happen, and I'm not perfect. I still have really bad days. Like today was not a good one considering I thought this was 5 hours from now, but that's okay. So, yeah. That was those were my driving forces for sure.
That's such an amazing driving force there, and children are number one anyway. If you have children, is I know for myself, it was a turnaround. I stopped a lot of stuff when my daughter was born. Just 6 months before that, I did a whole 180 turn as well. So like, okay, a lot of things got cut out, and don't do this, don't do that, and change the driving force. Yeah, it's amazing to hear that you've done that, and you're successful now as well. So in regards to when you are when you started your podcast and everything, so you have to be take entrepreneurial hat. And how was that journey for you when you decided to become an entrepreneur as well?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to have my own business. This sparked about, man, like years ago, like when my daughter was first born. I was like, I want to stay home. I want to do something from home, and I found virtual assisting, and I thought, oh, this is perfect because I've always done like admin work. So I was like, well, I'll just do this, and I hated it. So then I was defeated and I went back to 9 to 5. But now it feels right, but it's a lot to juggle because you have the day job and you have the family, and those things have, my money and my family has to be a priority. But this is also a huge priority. So it's hard to juggle it all. And sometimes I find myself very overwhelmed by it all because I want everything to work simultaneously, and it doesn't happen that way. So I'm done with my day job at 2 o'clock, and I like to be done with everything by 4 o'clock. So just imagine how much I'm squeezing in where I can. I work from home, which is helpful, but I can't just slack off all day and be having chats with people. It would be great if I could. But being an entrepreneur is amazing. I've met so many amazing people. I mean, that without the online space, never, I mean, I have a coach in New Zealand. I have friends in South Africa, like it's talking to you today and just all over the world. And it's the most beautiful thing one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced in my life is just how much there are good people in this world. Still have to be careful because people online it's just like the real world, but without this space, without being an entrepreneur, I never would have met people that were like-minded. I never would have met you. I never would have met anybody. So I'm so grateful to be able to show up and have these platforms and be an entrepreneur as a side job for now and build a community. I just love building the community of it all. It's fun and it's inspiring. So
Wow, that wonderful to that's the brilliant to hear that because you've got your day job, family, and then you just want to give yourself the time to spend on your passion now, which is being an entrepreneur, and the podcast. It's they say use 9 to 5 to fuel your 5 to 10, which is in your case will be 9 to 2, I don't know, whatever time. So 9 to 2 and then 2 to 5.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah,
So
and that's true. Yeah, and just one more thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when I was doing the VA work a few years ago, there were so many people out online saying, "Oh, quit your day job or you're not fully invested in the growth of your business." And I listened to that advice and it blew up in my face. So I'm here to tell you, do not quit your day job until you are 1,000, like check yourself 10 million times. You're financially secure. Do not do that. I just had to say that. Don't quit your day job. You're still fully committed to your business if you have a day job. So,
no, I
Steve.
agree. I agree with you that 100%, 100%, because being an entrepreneur, it's a lonely journey. But then again, it doesn't need to be that lonely journey. You have, there's a whole community out there, on this internet, in terms of, like how I'm interacting with you now. And there's so many, and you said your coach is in New Zealand. So, it's an amazing, right? So, in terms of coaches that you've mentioned, a coach, so what are your thoughts on getting a coach? Because a lot of people, when they do start out, they don't go for these, coaches or mentors, just because they want to do everything themselves. What are your thoughts on that coach? So that you think it's important for somebody who's starting any sort of journey, to have one, coach or a mentor?
Yes, I do feel that it's important, but I also want to say do not stress if you can't afford it. Because I was there and I'm still technically there. Do not put yourself in debt to get a coach. But if you are fortunate enough to be able to afford a coach or you have a friend who's willing to help you out for free, take them up on that offer because going it alone is hard and it's sad and it's just like you can't get out of your own head. So just having someone to call and be like, "Hey, like I thinking about this idea for what I want to do with my podcast or my business or whatever it is," and just literally talking to someone about it, all of a sudden your brain's like, "Oh, wait, that's what I want to do." And then you have someone to bounce people bounce people off of. That's not what I wanted to say. Bounce your ideas off of. I think it is really important. But mind you, you don't have to go out and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars to get that help. It could literally be a friend of yours. It could be your partner. It could be anybody, just to have someone to talk to bounce ideas off of. Now, if you're getting really niche down and need help with something very specific, like I needed help with like marketing. So my coach helped me like figure all that out, especially around the podcast. And just getting those pieces together. But if it's just needing someone to bounce ideas off of, you don't need a coach for that. Just call a friend and start talking about those ideas. But coaching, it is important though. Once you get to a certain point in your business, you will find you're like, wait, I have no clue what I'm doing. And my friends don't know how to help me. Then it's time to look in that direction. But be careful who you hire too at the same time.
No, that's actually a very brilliant share there with you. So that the coaches are needed, but be careful who you go out to. Because there are so many out there, and you always need to reach out to the people who you resonate with. So when you're following them for at least 6, 7 months to a year before you think, oh yeah, I'll join up with your services. I mean, at least that's what I do anyway. With any anybody that I've got about 3 different coaches, for 3 different things in marketing. I've got business as well and other things as well. So, but before I joined them, I was following them for at least a year, seeing how they work, seeing their results. So it's happening whilst I'm going. So, so a lot of time people just hear 1, 2 stories and like, okay, yeah, how much, and the expectations, you need to then have the correct expectations as well. The coach is not there to just change or give you the answers, all right, or do it for you, kind of a person. Because I've had conversation with people where they expect you to just do everything or have the solution already. And what the coach is providing you is, as you said, bouncing those ideas. So you might have a roadblock, of an idea, it's that's the $1 million idea, but then your coach might listen to it and say and bring in and perspective from their angle and then you were like, oh yeah, it's not $1 million idea. Actually, I didn't think of these things because
Yeah.
you were just thinking from one side, right? So that's what is needed. You can bounce those ideas from friends, or try to look for a community of similar entrepreneurs who are trying on a similar level as you, because you will bounce ideas off with each other, and have an accountability partners,
Hmm.
join up with communities who are on the similar path, and you then have that 30-minute Zoom calls, for example, if you're living in different countries, to have that something. If you're working on, I don't know, if you're working on marketing and you're just on a Zoom call, 30 minutes, music's blaring, and you're just having a chat. It's like being in the office, but you're just virtually. And then you're like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm trying to do this, have you done this? And then the ideas flow, and you, before you know it, you're teaching each other already, right? You're
Yeah.
learning from each other as well. And so it's 100%, because people should look for mentorship and coaches when they are ready. Usually the coach and the mentor appears because you'll be in that circle to do it. So
Yeah.
when you started this entrepreneurial journey of yourself, what was the biggest obstacle that you came across? I know you mentioned marketing already. So were there any more, or was the marketing the biggest one?
No, my biggest obstacle was figuring out how to tell my story effectively. So I go off on tangents, which I'm sure you've noticed. Um, so it was someone to help me rein that in and really look at it from, you know, like chunking things down and creating like a timeline and how I can tell certain parts without coming off, because some of it could be very shocking to people. So I don't want to turn people off by that. So just learning how to really share my story still raw and authentically, but also in a way that makes sense to other people, where people aren't turned off by it, if that makes sense. So that was also something that coach, same coach from New Zealand, helped me with too in the beginning, was really breaking my story apart and, okay, like this, tell this part and what I'm not comfortable sharing, and just going through all those pieces. That was the hardest part of breaking into what I'm doing now. Like I've done other things that were entrepreneurial, but I didn't enjoy them. But this was something I'm super passionate about. So I really wanted to be able to do it in a way that made sense. So having that help was really beneficial to me being here today and telling my story.
That's amazing. So it's amazing to hear that, and that's pretty much the earlier part of your journey, right? So to have your story, and why should it's a more a case of a why should people connect with you, right? When they
Mhm.
can connect with somebody else, why should they listen to you if they can listen to anybody else? And to have a story that they can follow or relate to, it has to be a relatable story, and people can connect to, right? Because it's all about and I suppose that's why Disney makes a lot of money, because they get so relatable and content for the kids. Well,
Yeah,
with kids as well. Who knows?
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so that's actually, so it's amazing to hear that the coaches are there to support and guide, but yet we need to do the work. When so are you still in the learning phase, or you're now implementing everything that you've learned, or the question would be, what's your daily routine? Because I know you've got a day job, family, and then this. So how do you juggle this? Because that'll be $1 million question, right? How do you juggle or fit everything in on we won't say a perfect day, but a good day. What does a good day look like for Amanda?
Yeah, so on a good day, I am productive at my day job and I'm not super distracted by Facebook or whatever else I'm trying to do in the background. And afterwards, I'm able to take a break from 2 to 2:30-ish and then dive into interviewing someone. Or if it's a day, because I've changed my schedule because I was running into severe overwhelm. So now I only interview on Thursdays. But prior to that, like, and just having time to get things done. And then when my husband gets home, I'm able to be like, all right, I'm shutting down and now it's family time. That's a perfect day. Now, how often that happens, we don't need to talk about that. But that is that is ideal for me, is to have the day job be productive, and then jump into podcasting or whatever else is on my schedule, and then be able to shut down and have family time the rest of the evening. So it's hard, and it's not easy to juggle everything, but I've created boundaries. So, like I said, now I'm only recording on Thursdays. I make exceptions here and there for time zones and things like that, but it's me communicating that, like, this is when it is. If you can't, then we have to figure something else out, but whatever. And just keeping myself focused. That's the hardest part, because I'm so excited about this kind of stuff that it's really hard to focus on the day job sometimes. But it's making sure that I'm getting that done so that I know in my mind, okay, I'm providing for my family, and then I can move on to my passion and then still have time for them too.
I love this. I love this. And in terms of the routine that I think I'll say I can relate to it to certain degrees, because my Tuesday talks that I'm doing is fixed on a Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 7 p.m. because that is by 6 o'clock I finish work, and then you continue to come to my passion, which is having interviews and my talk and a podcast as well. But it wasn't, it's what you just said was focus. And so I would add on to that, it's more as well with focus and discipline as well, because you have to have that discipline of then continuing it. And because this is live, I'm not sure if your one is live or just recorded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So me doing this live was holding myself accountable for actually showing up to do it, because there'll be an audience who is watching or listening, or they're looking forward to watching the replay. And that made me accountable for myself and discipline that I need to show up. A lot of things happened when I actually started it. This is the second year of this Tuesday Talks going on. I left my job, committed myself 100% to this, then now went back to my job as well, because the company reached out to me again to come back, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's come back again. So I've done that. Realization that what I thought I had in the bank wasn't enough.
Mhm. Yeah.
So always, I always say to everybody, yeah, if you want to go into entrepreneurial, you need to have at least 3 years worth of savings, at least minimum, so that becoming an entrepreneur is no way cheap as well. It's not. It's an expensive thing to do, because business cost comes around. Your marketing is there, your own time is there. So many things that before you know it, money is just like everybody's there to take the money. You need to put out a funnel, you need to put out market ads, you need to put out this, and I was like, right, okay. So good thing was that company reached out back to me, and I was like, yes, this is the right timing. Okay, I'll say yes
Yes,
to you.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
funny how the universe will give you what you need, right? Yeah, and you're right. Like 3 years, that'd be amazing. And just knowing that it's okay to feel like, maybe I need to go back to that day job for a little longer. That's okay. Like, we don't need to beat ourselves up, because it's not, there is no, in my world, there's no such thing as failure. So it is what it is. You just do what you have to do to keep it going, and you just keep showing up, and that's what you have to do, and just make sure you're taking care of yourself. So
Agree,
important.
100% agree. The thought did cross my mind, like, okay, if now people see me going back to work and they'll say, oh yeah, he's been unsuccessful, that what he wants to actually do. And then I was like, in my vocabulary, there is no access, there's no failures as well. So you're not unsuccessful. You've tried to put in the time. So what I've done is I've built, you know, uh, you've built a system now, which I was able to spend time on to build the system. The system is there, and now everything is an automation system that I can have people to book in. People, like, my calendar is booked all the way till March. Yeah,
Oh,
it's gone all the way to June now, actually. So,
nice.
so my calendar. So all is going all the way to June, which actually happened last year. That I came up with this when I started investing myself into the podcast more. So speaking to other podcasters and everything, and we were like, okay, why not just have the whole year calendar open, and we fix a day and things like that. So I was like, yeah, my day is already fixed, because that time I had a job, so I was doing it after work, not to interfere. So now I don't have it. It's with the flexibility, but yeah, we'll fix the date and move the calendar out there. Whoever wants to choose whatever day they can choose. And then, in the beginning, I was looking for people to interview, do the podcast, and then really looking around, asking and everything. And now it's like, okay, I am doing the podcast. Who wants in? Which kind of brings that little bit more of a system that is there, and the discipline is the people who are there now. I need to show up for them, no matter what I'm feeling. It's actually cold and very cold here now in UK now. But about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there's no sunlight. It's totally dark already. And then I have a little walk from my house to the office in the back. Sometimes I look outside, I'm like, oh, do I really need to go out? you know?
Yeah, I
So
know, I know. It's cold here too. I feel you. It's hard and it's so dark, and it's depressing, but we just keep showing up because our audience is there waiting for us, and you never know who's going to show up that needed to hear what you have to say that day. And it's so important that you just keep showing up.
exactly, 100% agree. So we will be wrapping this up soon, and I would like to say thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story as well, and letting us know, what the drives are and how you are still, going and carried on going through the ups and downs of your journey. If you would have to share one snippet of a segment that you had, like which motivated you to continue uh, going. I don't know if it was a quote or it was like Tony Robinson's video or anything, or a certain book. I don't know whatever that is. What is there something that you would like to share? Is there something like that?
Yeah, so a book that I read a while ago now was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and that was a huge eye opener. I really should reread that one. Great book. And then I have a friend, an online friend, Craig Stanland, and he is also a formerly incarcerated person, and he wrote a book called Blank Canvas. And just reading his story and how he went through what he went through and still is striving and doing amazing things in this world. Like he's doing great things. And that book is what I needed to read in that moment. And that was this year. So that was more recent. And that book really helped me go, all right, Amanda, like, why are you thinking about giving up? Stop and keep going. And there's other people too that I follow who've been incarcerated way longer than me. Like I was only in for 8 months. There's people who've been in there for 20 plus years who are
Wow.
just like going and going and going and sharing their message and, trying to change the narrative around incarceration. And that keeps me going too. It's like, well, if he or she can do it, I have no excuse. So that's literally part of what keeps me going, besides for obviously my family. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you very much for sharing this. And all the people who are watching with us now live or going to watch this on a replay on Instagram, if and when you had a light bulb moment when you were listening to this, or you got inspired by something that Amanda just mentioned there, and you were like, "Oh wow, I never thought of this," or "I know somebody who is going through this," just share this with them. And or if you had an inspiration moment, it's our duty then to share anything inspirational and not to just keep it with us. So if you found this episode inspirational or a light bulb moment for yourselves, we need to share it with ourselves. That's our duty. We need to do so. I urge whoever's watching or listening now to share with that person or tag that person if you can, because the more people we share with, the better the universe and world would be. Because we do not know who woke up or is going to bed thinking of a better today or a tomorrow. And if you had a spark with watching this, it might just change their world. Who knows? So, Amanda, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time. Is there anything you would like to say to wrap things up?
I just want to say, like I always say, is to remember that you are stronger than you think and you can have the life you imagine, regardless of your past. I say that every episode of my show. It's so important that we remind ourselves of that every day and that you are enough as you are.
100% you are enough as you are. I agree with that as well. So if anybody wants to check it out, so they can follow you on your Instagram and Facebook, the handles are the same.
Yeah, the Let Good Things In show on here. On Facebook, it's my name, Amanda Marie Acker, and I have a group over there. It's everything's Let Good Things In show. So if you search that, you'll
It's
find a bunch of things. So
amazing. So is there a podcast, a link to the podcast already out, or is there something coming up?
no, that's out. It's if you go to my Instagram page, it's I have a link tree there and it's one of the links on there. You can get to the show.
Amazing. So everybody who's listening or watching now, yep, head over there, continue the podcast over there, and listen to further the story. It's an amazing story. I will definitely subscribe to that if whatever channel's on. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
everybody else, we will see you on next Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.